This is why media hype can take you up, take you down. So you don't know anymore who's really good, because the media can make a wicked man look good and make a good man look evil. That is why.
Good evening. You are watching the Final Call News Hour, and I am your host, Herman Muhammad. This evening we are coming out of volume number 31, issue number 4, Killing Gaddafi. Western assault on North African nation claims success, but future remains uncertain. Assassination of Libya's revolutionary leader condemned. This is the latest edition of the Final Call News paper that all of you should definitely pick up. I just want to read something because the story begins on page 2. And I'll start by reading this particular article written by our brother who writes out of Washington, D.C., senior correspondent Askia Muhammad. He vowed he would never leave his native Libya and that he would fight against his NATO-backed enemies until the last bullet. And so it was. Libya's Colonel Muammar Gaddafi and his 42-year-old Green Revolution came to a violent, ugly end in his hometown Sirte, October 20th. Rebel fighters captured the deposed leader shortly after his convoy was bombed in a NATO attack on Sirte, the last stronghold of pro-Gaddafi supporters. Then, as seen in video footage released by the participants, he was beaten, spat upon, and shot to death by fighters. His blood-drenched body was then dragged on the ground. What was to have been his swift burial in a secret place was delayed amidst international calls, including from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, for a probe into the very disturbing images of his murder. Celebrations broke out across Libya as people lined up in nearby Misrata to view his remains, which were held in a cold storage site. First, American officials, then Libya's National Transitional Council, NTC, declared the 8-month-old insurrection had come to an end. And of course, this story is dealing with the assassination of brother leader Muammar Gaddafi, which again occurred on October the 20th. I was deeply saddened by the news because, in my view, Muammar Gaddafi was a true revolutionary, a true friend to blacks in America and to blacks throughout the diaspora. And as a matter of fact, in his Green Book, he wrote that he believed that the black race would prevail based upon what had happened to us during the transatlantic slave trade and subsequent slavery, and the fact that Allah, God, is just. So he believed that the black race would prevail. He was a great friend of the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So as black people here in America, he should be considered a great friend to each and every one of us. Again, the killing of Gaddafi. And we got to give props to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because he refused to show brother leader in that condition that found him bloody and then eventually killed. He showed him in a victorious pose like he is now, because we know that if you are slain in the way of Allah as a Muslim, there's no death for you, and that Allah has promised us the victory no matter how dark it seems that it gets. So props, mad props to the Honorable. Again, mad props to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for showing us this beautiful side of our brother leader. Again, this coverage begins on page 2, and we're coming out, the Final Call News Hour, we're coming out in defense of brother leader Gaddafi, the Desert Lion, as he was known as, because we know the many great works that he did. And so we want to remember him in the same line as the great Kwame Nkrumah, Gamal Abdel Nasser, who else? Patrice Lumumba, all of those people who fought on behalf of blacks and oppressed people throughout Africa and throughout the diaspora. And so we can't let his death be in vain. We have to continue on with his ideas. So I just want to read a piece from The Final Call, page 3. And this article is entitled, "They Can Kill the Man But Not His Ideas. Death of Libya's Gaddafi Brings Discussion of Legacy and the Future of a United Africa." And we're coming to you in this way because we know that the propagandists have put out what they wanted to say about Muammar Gaddafi. Ronald Reagan called him the mad dog of the Middle East. But, you know, whatever. Just because he's their enemy doesn't make him our enemy. And as a matter of fact, if he's their enemy, it should make him our friend. But let me read this. Muammar Gaddafi, the Lion of Africa, is gone, and as with great African luminaries before him like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of independent Ghana, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt's visionary advocate of pan-Arab unity, and others, the Libyan revolutionary's life, work, and struggles can begin to be studied and assessed. Now, pay attention to this. When Colonel Gaddafi led the Al-Fatah revolution on September 1, 1969, deposing King Idris al-Sanusi, who was a tool of foreign powers, Libya was one of the poorest nations in the world. Through the revolution, he championed the power equation where outside interests controlled Libya's rich oil deposits for their own benefit while the Libyan people suffered in abject poverty changed. He evicted Americans and the British and then shut down their military bases. He nationalized the oil industry and used the revenue to build schools, universities, hospitals, and infrastructure. He shared oil profits directly with the citizens of Libya and gave material support to liberation movements worldwide. Before the revolution, only 15% of Libyans were educated. Under Colonel Gaddafi, the literacy rate blossomed from 20% to 83%, and higher education was a human right provided free of charge. He established state-of-the-art healthcare and manufactured pharmaceuticals that were given free of charge. Housing was also a right, and he provided homes or apartments to every Libyan. Every couple entering marriage was given a $50,000 stipend to start their new lives. Now, let's just marinate on that for a minute. Because he's been vilified in the media, but he's done all of these wonderful things for the people of Libya. Now, one might ask, and I'm going to be brief, why wouldn't the people defend him? Why were the people celebrating when America and her allies, NATO, and these Libyan rebels, so-called, liberated the Libyan people from the grasp of this dictator? Why wouldn't they defend him? It is because, and we got this information straight from someone who was on the ground, former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, I wish I had an image of her, I don't right now, was on the ground in Libya. And she was saying that they, America, NATO, and her allies, bombed Libya so indiscriminately and so harshly to where they bombed Libya back into the Stone Age. Now you say, still, why wouldn't they defend Brother Gaddafi? Because they said that they were bombing because of Gaddafi. They disabled his military. He gave up his weapons of mass destruction in 2003 when he thought that George W. Bush was welcoming him back into the international community. They tricked him, suffice it to say. But anyway, the people began to see Gaddafi as a source of their pain, a source of all of this that America was bringing on them. So naturally, when they deposed him and when they killed him, ultimately, now you don't have the drones flying over. Now you don't have the NTC, this new Libyan government, shooting and killing Libyans indiscriminately. So when the oppressor comes down on you so hard, like they did on the people of Libya, they will pray to get rid of that person who they believe is bringing this down on them. At this juncture was Gaddafi, and it appears that they celebrated, but it's only because they were relieved. Now Libya, like the paper says, has a very uncertain future, and we shall see. But for those of us who are fans of justice, just know that God is just, and His justice does not sleep. It lays down with you when you go to bed at night, and it gets up with you when you get up in the morning. So all of these people who brought this down on Libya and who have brought this down on oppressed people throughout the world, man, you got to pay. But again, pick up this edition of the Final Call newspaper. And you know, I could say so much more, but I don't want to speak ahead of time. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is going to be addressing members of the Nation of Islam, inshallah, tomorrow on November the 1st. And, you know, he'll be giving us instructions in regards to this whole Libyan situation. But my advice to all of those who are watching this program is don't believe the hype. You know what I'm saying? Read and study for yourselves. We are at war, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said on October 7th at the World Day of Atonement in Philadelphia. We are at war, and these people are doing something really ill. They're trying to take over the resources of the entire world and have just a minute minority controlling all of the resources, and most of those valuable resources are in Africa. And Gaddafi was a staunch defender of Africa and African interests. So, again, pick up this newspaper, the Final Call newspaper, and I just wanted to stop in and say those words about Brother Gaddafi. And there are so many articles in this paper. There's one dealing with the NBA. There's one dealing with why, what do I want to say? There's one dealing with the NBA and David Stern and what's going on there. There's an article dealing with the declining number of blacks seen in math and science. Just a very power-packed issue of the Final Call newspaper. So pick that up. I'm your man, Brother Herman Muhammad, and I'll be back. I just wanted to stop in and, you know, give props to Brother Muammar Gaddafi and just say that stay black, stay tuned, and remember, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Peace, and we out. You've been watching the Final Call News Hour.
Just a poor excuse for you to use up all your bullets. How much money does it take to really make a full clip? 9/11 Building 7, did they really pull it? And a bunch of other cover-ups. Your child's future was the first to go with budget cuts. If you think that hurts, then wait, here comes the uppercut. The school was garbage in the first place. That's on the up and up. Keep you at the bottom, but tease you with the upper crust.